G'day everyone, Jason Nunn with an early Friday fishing report brought to you by Fisherman's Warehouse Marine, Sweet Street at Warners Bay. Of course, they being Thursday, trying to get ahead of the southerly with a few showers possibly coming through tomorrow. Sensational behind us here up at Warners Bay. Swans behind us, but the lake is an absolute picture. And this has been the case pretty much all week. We just had this beautiful weather, and we talked about it last week, around about 6 or 7 days of perfect, and that's exactly what we did. Of course, on the weekend, all about game fishing at the moment. The Newcastle Game Fishing Club held their East Coast tournament. A lot of striped marlin off the coast. There was the odd blue, a few blacks of course, but a lot of striped marlin. Some guys struggled like we did. We only got one on the Saturday, but other guys flourished. Ryan Faulkner from Lake Macquarie, he fished the event. They got 5 or 6 I think it was on the first day, and lost many more, and that seems to be the trend, where there's a lot of fish still up at Port Stephens and there's a lot of fish off our part of the coast. So fortunately, tomorrow's not going to be good. I wouldn't suggest tomorrow. Saturday doesn't look too bad, still a bit of wind, but Sunday and Monday look okay, and I think we may end double out and have another bit of a look at it on probably Sunday, weather permitting of course. Been this troublesome swell this week, guys. We've had a lot of swell up on the Gold Coast, and it's been very east northeast, and I did see that the last few days with a few boats turning around early in the morning on Swansea Bar on that big run out tide. There have been very low tides, guys, this weekend. For example, low tide on Saturday morning around about 25 past 8, and that high tide is going to come through at 20 past 2 in the evening. So you're going to get those two tide changes, and of course at the moment it's the first quarter of the moon as we build into the full moon that's going to come probably in about 7 or 8 days time as we head towards Easter, which is of course at the end of the month. Now that swell really dangerous on a lot of the bars, so certainly anything north of Foster of course, that's really playing havoc. Port Stephens, Newcastle Harbour, probably the exception to the rule because they're not actually a significant bar crossing, but Swansea, it was terrible. It was almost breaking all the way across, and a few guys did turn back. So you've got to remember safety first. With this southerly coming through, it'll switch that swell around and we'll get a little bit of a southerly swell, which won't be too bad. Hopefully we don't get them meeting, and that's really going to be the trend. But 26-degree water temp off the coast, a few patches of 23.5. Spoke to Stuart Turnbull today. They got a very nice striped marlin yesterday up on the car park. But again, that fluctuation of water temperature. To my surprise, there was quite a few smaller dolphin fish out there. And I spoke to Ross Island there late last week. He was out on the shelf on Friday and had a lot of dolphin fish in and around about that 65, 70 centimetre mark in his slick. And I just spoke to a couple of the boys that have been up Harrington on the weekend. Same deal, a lot of small dolphin fish. So we still might see that group of fish, that big pack of small dolphin fish, move down and get in on these traps and these fads. There's some small ones out there at the moment, but as we've talked about, a lot of bigger fish out on the shelf as well. And Matthew Twist found out about that as he got the heaviest other game fish in the Newcastle comp out on the shelf with a beautiful fish around about 17.5 kilo, and that's the sort of, that's a classic case of how big some of these dolphin fish are. On the inshore reefs, a lot of trag. I've seen a lot of posts this week of some incredibly good catches of trag, both here off Swansea and of course up off Port Stephens. But Newcastle, the dumping ground and all those sorts of areas there would be no exception. But my tip is probably Catherine Bay, Wyabung, and maybe out on some of those wider reefs, a lot of really, really good quality trag. Still a lot of bonito around, guys, and some very big bonito amongst those. The odd snapper, still a few flatties, but inshore mulloway as well. So there's quite a bit of fish activity while ever this water temperature coastally now is basically maintaining itself at around about 23 degrees, which is absolutely perfect. A few tailor mixed in with the bonito if you're around the island or down towards Mawson. So we're starting to see that little bit of a variety coastally. So we're just starting to come out of it now and things are looking good. No reports of cobia over the last 7 days, but we'll certainly keep you updated if that continues. On the beaches, flathead of course starting to move through now, and those early morning, late afternoon tailor. And with this moon starting to rise through now, a great opportunity to start to target mulloway coastally all the way through. In the lake itself, those squid have been a bit tough, and I've spoken to quite a few guys. They are struggling a little bit on the squid. I just think some of the normal areas like Murray's and the drop over are probably getting worked too heavily, and I just think you have to move around a little bit more and look for better options. There's quite a number of very good blue swimmer crab. I spoke to Bobby Mowbray yesterday, got some beautiful blue swimmer crabs in the deep water, and that's what you've got to do, move around and get into that deep water. There's not as many jennies now as we're into March. A lot more of those jennies have moved out of the system, so they're quality blue swimmer crabs, and the tip is definitely that deeper water. So put a few pots out and then maybe have a drift for a squid in the deeper water. I think that'll serve you better. Still a few flathead around. My good mate Ronnie Owen had a fish a couple of days ago, nice flathead around about 63 centimetres. But again, guys are still struggling to make up the catches. The brim, there's a few better brim around, but a lot of in different sizes. Fish, 30 to 35s, and some of the guys that are fishing in the evening getting them 38 or better. But still enough interest in whiting on those sand flats if you want to mix it up a little bit. And there's quite a few flathead now moving back into the sort of the back of the islands into the channel, as they're now starting to move down the channel and out. And possibly after this little bit of a southerly, you'll start to see that movement happening. Still reports, guys, of schools of kingfish in the lake, and in particular that deep water down between Pulborough Island and Swansea. A lot of fish moving around, and tailor. Some really nice tailor, but again, you've got to move around. Those better 50 to 55 centimetre fish aren't as thick as they should be, but over the next 3 to 4 weeks, you'll see that continue and will really come into its own. And the bait is thick. The bait is really, really thick down around Pulborough. So again, once the tailors start to move into the system, start to chop through this bait, we'll see a lot more mulloway getting caught on lures, and a lot of our anglers, and particularly you guys, will move back into using soft plastics or vibes on the bottom. At the moment, still probably a lot more merit in throwing out grub tails and curly tails and still working those edges through that shallower water as these fish start to move out of our system. Anyway, guys, a nice early one today. Not going to be as good tomorrow. The weekend's still got a lot of hope in it. A few showers next week. I'll speak to you next Friday with, hopefully, we've had some success outside. I'll see you then.